We're gonna see how long it takes for the princess to come interrupt me. Welcome to How to Get a Job at an International School, featuring my dog, because she is very needy. So, disclaimer before I begin this video. Your experience at an international school probably won't be like mine. I was brought on in February as an emergency replacement because the second grade teacher at my school last year had to leave halfway through the year. So they brought me on to finish out the year. And then at the end of the year, I asked if I could move up to 5th, which is how I have the position I have now. So my hiring and onboarding process looked quite different than what's standard at most schools anywhere. So in the future, if I have a more standard onboarding process, maybe I'll make an updated video. But as for right now, this is the best advice I can give. So I'm mostly making this video because this is what I wished I could have found when I was searching the internet back when I started looking at international schools. Yogi, Yogi. It's gonna be like this again. Anja. Yeah, Anja. Thank you. So, I am going to try screen record, and if it is successful, I will put the screen recording right here. Sweet. All right. So, the first thing you need to do when you are looking at working at an international school is do your research. I literally just Googled international schools in Seoul because I knew I wanted to be in Seoul. So I just saved the websites of all the international schools that I would be okay with working at, go on their websites, learn about their educational philosophies. Obviously, a school website is going to give you a very ideal version of the school, not necessarily what it's like entirely. However, it is a good starting place because you can tell a lot about a school by their website. So I compiled my list of all the schools that I would be like, yes, if this school offers me a job, I will accept. Now, step number 2, make sure your resume and cover letter is up to date. Resume, CV, whatever you call it. So this is my current resume. Obviously, I have blacked out some important details, but this is my most current up-to-date resume. If you'll notice, I'm starting my master's this summer. But so I just put that on there for like spacing. I made my resume and cover letter on Google Slides, and I found a template that I really liked online, copied it in Google Slides, and then this is my resume. So it has basic contact information, profile, my teaching experience, my education, skills, obviously, and then I have a QR code on here that lists to my portfolio, and I will go through my portfolio after I'm done talking about this because I feel like my portfolio is probably the best example of my teaching that I have built so far. So this is page 1 of my resume. Page 2 is, once again, experience, contacts, education. My certifications is important as well. I highlight that I have my teaching license in the US and I have a teaching license in the UK. So I'm qualified in 2 countries to be a teacher. And then I highlight that I have international baccalaureate training. So if a school hires me on, that's an IB school, they won't have to train me on IB. And that I am a Google certified educator, because that is very important for international schools. If you watched my other video, I talk about how a lot of international schools will look for that. And then I have my references, which I have covered for confidentiality reasons. Then, my cover letter. I made this basic cover letter and then just highlighted everything that needs to be changed when I write a cover letter for a new school. So it's just like the date, the school's information at the top, and then the 2 places where I specifically list the school that I will be sending this cover letter to. And then again, I have my QR code here linking to my portfolio. And then what I do when I write this cover letter is I download it as a PDF, and then in the PDF editing software I use, I sign my name electronically, and then that is what I email to the schools along with my resume. So this is just something I made. I'm not going to link it on TPT because the pattern that I followed is very, very, very similar to another creator who does sell their pattern. So I'm not gonna do it. But this is my resume and cover letter. Now, for my main focus, my portfolio. She loves me. Hi, baby. She loves me. She's shedding right now, so my pants are covered in white fur. All right, sorry, back to my portfolio. So this is my teaching portfolio. Oh my God, is my picture. Can I get rid of this? No? Cool. Okay, well, picture's just in the corner, I guess. All right, so this is my teacher portfolio. I used to have a physical version of it, but then when I moved abroad, as many things as I can make digital as possible, I'm going to make digital. So this is the main page of my teacher portfolio. It's got my most recent school photo, and then just a little overview about myself. And then I have some featured items at the bottom. My featured items are, of course, my teaching license, a video of me teaching when I worked at the English Center, and then a letter that a parent wrote about what it was like to have a child who's in my class. And then at the bottom, I have my socials linked. Then if we go through, so that's my homepage, and then I have my About Me tab. So my About Me tab is exactly what it sounds like. This is just basically how I would introduce myself in an interview. I have a little blurb about who I am, picture of my family, the university that I graduated from, highlighting my degree, the courses I took, the practicum and student teaching that I did, and then clubs that I was a part of when I was at Minot State. And then a little blurb about my life outside of the classroom, about how being internationally minded is very important to me and how travel is very important to me, like these things that international schools are looking for in potential candidates. Like almost every school says something about like international mindedness and things like that. So I made sure to include that in my About Me blurb. Next page is my credentials and certifications. So up at the top, I have my Bachelor's of Science in Education. And then once I complete my master's, I'm getting a master's in education in reading. So I will have my master's as well. And then I have like carousels is what they're called set up. So my first one is my teaching credentials. So I have my North Dakota teaching credential, and then I have my UK teaching credential. And then because I work at an IB school and I want to continue to work at IB schools, I have any IB professional development I complete listed separately. So as of right now, I've only done 2 things for IB, but I plan on doing more. So they will be listed here. And then at the bottom, I have Google certifications in one spot to kind of highlight those. And then any other professional development I have done is listed in this one. So that is how I showcase my credentials and certifications. Next one, teaching experience. So teaching experience, I will link, so I will put the name of the school that I work at, how long I worked there. Basically, it's the same as my resume, but I added pictures. So I have my current job, I have when I worked at the English Center, and like, again, my pictures are set up on a carousel. Shows me teaching or like students working on things. This is the only job I do not have pictures for, is when I was a substitute teacher, because who takes pictures when they're substitute teaching? And then my first job. And then I have some sample lesson plans. Now this is part of my portfolio that I think I'm gonna change to something else, because it's not the main concern for administration. I put this on there originally because I thought it was a good idea. I think what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna have this like watch me teach sort of things, and like have videos of me teaching different lessons, because these lesson plans are just not like, these are lesson plans that I didn't even write these my first year of teaching. I wrote them after the fact based on lessons my first year teaching. But like, if you look at these, like no one writes lessons like these for their action. This is a 3-page lesson plan for an hour-long lesson. No one does this. So this is incredibly detailed and not at all what my lesson plans look like now. So then moving on, I have my classroom management page, which I would say this is like the most important part of my portfolio, because all the other information anyone can get from my resume or cover letter. This is what administrators want to see. This is what they care about, is your classroom management. So I highlight here, like, this has been beaten to death by educators, but relationships first. And there's a reason educators say this time and time and time again, is because it's true. Now, relationships don't fix everything. Some things you can have the best relationship with a kid and it's not gonna work, but I can get a lot further with a kid I have a good relationship with, and I can get a lot further with a kid whose parents I have a good relationship with. Honey, yeah, Yogi, Yogi, I need you to settle. All right, so we're gonna ignore her for now. So I highlight that at the top, relationships first. I get to know my kids. I let my kids get to know me. I let parents get to know me to an extent. I make myself as human as possible for these children. That way the children respect me as a human, not as some authority figure entity who they spend 8 hours a day with. Then I have a classroom floor plan. Now, the reason I have a floor plan is to show administration, hey, I don't just throw things in my classroom. There's a rhyme, there's a reason. So if we look at my floor plan, this was my second year of teaching. This was my classroom. So I just threw this together on, I think this is like Google Draw or maybe Google Slides. I don't even remember, but I put it together. And then I explained that like I used flexible seating and all of this other stuff, basically to show like there is a reason to my madness and I don't just throw things together willy-nilly. All right, then I have a video that I made my first year teaching, because I took American Sign Language in college, and then the college reached out to me when I had graduated asking for a video of me using sign language in the classroom. And from what I understand, my college was actually able to get funding for something in the SPED department because of my video, because they showed, hey, look, other students who are other majors are still using this outside of the classroom. So I linked that video basically showcasing how I use American Sign Language as a classroom management tool. And then I have a link to my procedures / like management tactics, I don't know what else to call it, that I teach throughout the first week of school, basically showing that like I am prepared, I know what I'm doing, and I have like a plan ready for basically everything. So this is essentially showing administration I have my crap together and I will be able to manage a classroom full of tiny humans. And then the last page of my teacher portfolio is my teaching philosophy. Now, once again, I highlight that I do relationships first, and then I have a picture of me with 2 students from my first teaching job. We had a little powwow at the school. 2 of my girls are dancers, so they danced in the powwow. We took this picture. Yay, happy fun times. But so I talk about how relationships are super important, and I put a huge emphasis on building these relationships with my kids. The next one, I talk about parent involvement. So for the parent involvement, I basically say like I like to have a good relationship with parents right off the bat. I make it a point to send home an email to every single parent the first week of school, pointing out something good I noticed their kid doing and how excited I am to have them in my classroom. Then I always make sure I'm able to send home 1 or 2 good emails, so that way by the time it comes to maybe I have to send home a not so stellar email, the parents know I'm not out to get their kid. And again, there's always something I can talk about with a kid. I had one kid who I talked about their very big personality and how they always add an air of like, I don't remember how I phrased it, but basically this kid had like a super big personality. And so the way that I phrased it, I said like this kid is very fun loving and always has us on our toes in the classroom and makes the classroom much more exciting than it would be otherwise, which, you know, the way that can be interpreted is up to the interpreter, but there's always something positive I can say about a child. So I always try to do that. And then I have a letter linked from a parent. I had both of her kids. I had her daughter my first year teaching, and I had her son my second year teaching. And then due to many, many reasons, the mom and I had to get really good at a lot of things really fast. And so we had to work together a lot. And so I asked, like, I'm like, hey, can you just, write a quick blurb for me about what it was like to have a kid in my class? And so this is the letter that she wrote. It's just explaining like what she was like having, how she felt having a kid in my class. Then if we go back to teaching philosophy, I also talk about how I place a huge importance on learning and growing as a learner. Like, I feel like that's very important. And then I talk about, again, creating global citizens. Once again, global mindedness and all of those important things are very big in the international school world. So I try to really drive that point home that is something that I focus on. So that is my teacher portfolio and my resume / cover letter. Now, in the interview, when you are being interviewed, so step number 1 in an interview, research the school that's interviewing you. Most schools that I have seen use the International Baccalaureate curriculum. So if you want to work at an international school, I highly recommend you become very familiar with International Baccalaureate and what their values and beliefs and all of that stuff is. Now, you don't have to be perfectly fluent. A lot of schools are willing to train you in IB if you meet other criteria. But it's really good to be able to say, I don't have any experience in IB. However, I've done my research, so I do know a lot about IB philosophy and framework and learner profiles and ATLs and all of that stuff, because that just looks impressive when you've shown that you've done your research. So learn about IB, learn about the school that you're going to be working at. One important thing that I did to help me get hired is I looked at my school's website and I found as many buzzwords as I could, such as global mindedness, international learners, global citizens, like all of these fancy buzzwords that are super important to international schools. And I crammed those into my resume and my cover letter. And then during the interview, I made sure to drop those words a few times. And it's going to be slightly different between schools, but for the most part, learn the educational buzzwords. You'll see a lot of words repeated across a lot of websites. So figure out what the pattern is and then drop those words as often as you can without being suspicious. That's the key there. If you drop it too often, they're gonna be like, okay, this person's doing it on purpose. But figure out the school's philosophy, figure out maybe their management style, if they're a PBIS school, figure out like anything, like if they have clubs, after school activities, would you be willing to lead a club or after school activity? It's just like research the school and show them that you put the effort into researching their school, because international schools don't really want to waste their time with applicants that don't have a fighting chance. Like they don't want to waste their time. So you need to show them that you are worth their time. The other thing that's very important is make sure your references are solid. This is not an instance when you should call up your buddy and go, yo, can you pretend to be my manager from my last job? They will call your references. They will cross-check things. They will double check everything. So make sure your references are reliable references and make sure your references are who they say they are. Because when I got hired at my current school, I knew that they had called my references, because both of my references came to me right after the phone call and they're like, "Ooh, we got a call from this school," and then told me exactly what they asked. So they're gonna be thorough in their research and their background checks and stuff. During your interview, relax, be yourself. This is such cliche advice, but it's cliche for a reason. You want your school to see who you are as a teacher, because who you are as a teacher is way better than who you think you should be as a teacher. I am who I am. I have gotten as far as I have gotten because of who I am and because of what I know I am capable of doing. So just be yourself in the interview. Then follow up your interview. And I hear all of my Gen Z friends going, oi, work climate is changing, work culture is changing, and yes, I agree with that. In the corporate sector, however, if you are watching this, chances are you do not work in the corporate sector, you work in education. So we have a little bit different scenarios going on here. Yes, in the corporate sector, things are changing, norms are changing. However, education is still a little bit more, is still a little bit more rigid. Send a thank you email. That is one of the biggest things that set me apart, is sending a quick thank you email after my interview, basically going, thank you for taking the time to interview me. I am very excited at the prospect of working at your school. I look forward to hearing back from you at your earliest convenience. Have a nice rest of your day. Very simple, very straightforward, and they responded back with, thank you so much for your email. We will be sure to let you know as soon as possible. Just the thank you email follow-up is a nice touch to add. And then after that, you get to play the waiting game, which sucks. but it'd be like that sometimes. We love job hunting. And then after that, you just play the waiting game. Hopefully you get a job offer. And if you don't, well, try again next hiring season. Also, quick tip, keep looking at the websites. Oftentimes, a job will fall through, something will pop up, and then you can use that as your in, especially if they interviewed you before and you were a strong candidate. If they see your name come across their hiring files again, they're gonna wanna go with someone who is familiar and had a strong interview. So if you interviewed and you felt like you interviewed well and you really like the school, keep tabs on their website. They may post jobs halfway through the year. Like international schools tend to be somewhat transient with their population. They'll have needs pop up halfway through the school year. So keep an eye out. Maybe it might not be the job that you want, but maybe you can get another job. Maybe you can get an in another way, and then come the next year, should the job you want pop up, you're already there. I am a firm believer that that was one of my biggest selling points. Obviously, I think that I'm a good teacher and I think that I'm a good employee, but a huge selling point for me when I was applying for international school jobs was that I was already in Korea, so it wasn't gonna be a huge relocation process for me. Instead of moving from another country and having to deal with getting into the country, I just had to get from Gwangju to Seoul, which is a lot more doable. So even if the position you like for sure want doesn't pop up, if a position that you know you can do pops up, maybe go for that. It's way easier once you are in the country and working in the system. International schools are one of those things where it's kind of hard to get a foot in the door, but once you get a foot in the door, unless you seriously screw up, you're in. So, biggest tips: resume and cover letter, portfolio, keep tabs on websites, and then research IB. Unless you know for certain you don't want to work at an international baccalaureate school, look into IB, know about IB. That's, I would say most international schools use international baccalaureate. So just research IB. You know, maybe one day I can make a video about IB overview, because again, something I would have liked to have found. But thank you for joining me. Let me know if this was helpful or not. I don't know. I'm still new to making videos. It's been 2 years and I keep saying I'm still new. I don't know. I'll figure out what I'm doing like 5 years into this channel. But thank you. Bye-bye.